What's up, guys, and welcome back to my series where I share with you some of my art pieces throughout my art career. This one I did a couple years ago. This one is called Boom Day and Night. This piece specifically is very, very special to me, and again, I say this every episode, but this one specifically is one of my favorite set of pieces ever. Just overall the shift and the contrast between the two, as well as a lot of different aspects we'll get into. Last week was my first episode of an animation series, so if you didn't see that, go check that out. Today we have Boom Day and Night, and I'm very, very excited to share with you guys these sets of pieces. Let's get right onto the sketch phase. So here you see the sketch phase, very, very loose. But one thing I will say is the nuclear explosion in the back is very, very, I don't know what the word for it is, but I think the most exciting part of this piece for me was definitely making the explosion. So when it came to that, I really had a vision. I really had an idea of what I really wanted to do. I believe that's why this is the most rendered. Again, this was a couple of years ago, so I'm not entirely sure, but obviously the most rendered thing in this piece right now is that explosion, and I can tell you right now it's definitely was my favorite and still is my favorite part about this piece. When making this piece, the idea was, I don't know if anyone's seen Indiana Jones, or obviously in real life they tested nuclear bombs on like fake neighborhoods with dolls and stuff in the desert just to test nuclear bombs, as I said, and this kind of was the inspiration for that. And there's a lot of different aspects. Again, I'll get way deeper into the specifics and some of my favorite parts when we get to the colored part, but this overall is the sketch. It's looking pretty good, but not great, but looking pretty good. Let's move on to the line work phase. So we got both line works here. I threw both of them on screen because, I mean, overall they are pretty much the same, but there's a lot of also differences within them that I'll get further into when it comes down to the fully rendered image. But overall, the line work of this piece is super, super good. I really, really love how this came out. I love how the explosion looks. I love how the vulture's head looks. The vulture's head is something I'll get into as well. Some differences we see automatically is that dummy we see in the foreground there lost his arm and his hands in the beak of the vulture's mouth on the Boom Day at the top, and then the Boom Night there's a dead rabbit. And then also looking at those dummies in those houses to the left, we see that the dummy is melted in flame, and so is the house, and the other dummy standing at the house is also melting, and there's flames coming out of the house. So as far as like the line work goes, those are the differences there. I also see that I changed that arm in the foreground. Again, we'll get into the details, but that arm in the foreground and the Boom Day at the top becomes blood in the Boom Night at the bottom. Completely different shifts in mood, and that was the whole idea. Now let's get down to business, and I want to share the first fully rendered piece, Boom Day. All right, we have Boom Day here. God, I mean, I freaking love this piece. I don't really have fans, but I will say most people I show my art, this is a fan favorite, as one of my favorite pieces personally, and a pieces other people really enjoy, like my mom. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's start with the thing closest to us, this vulture here. What I said before, this head that I illustrated is probably one of my favorite things I ever drew. This was gonna be a logo for me for a while, I was thinking about, just because of how I rendered it, but I really freaking love how his head looks here. Their heads are so nasty and wrinkly, and I really depicted that really well here. The stylized beak kind of going waving in and out to under his eyeball, kind of like a wave, is really, really cool. And then I really like that nose hole that's kind of, you can just see through the other side, kind of like a skull. Regardless, we got the scavenger holding the dummy hand, right? A little bit of texture in the wings for one, something you won't see me do literally ever, I think. But you know, we got the rest of the bird going down there. Working down, we have the mannequin's arm that's associated with this guy here who lost his arm, but that scavenger's kind of got that thing in his mouth. Farther back into the piece, we have dummy people about to get nuclearly incinerated, but we got the guy there he is, missing his arm, so there's his arm right there. And then we got his house with his dummy wife to the left as well. I really like the color of the house I chose here. I think it fits like the era people were testing these bombs on. I don't know the actual date in which the nuclear bomb tests were going on, but I feel like I depicted this era, maybe the 80s, 70s, I don't know. Regardless, it's a really cool color. I think it looks really cool. I know there's some like perspective issues with the house, but that's whatever. I think it looks cool. I think it works. Moving farther back, we see a fence at the bottom here with the keep out sign, just to let people know that this is not some sort of playground where you can just venture, because something real bad's gonna happen soon. But regardless, we got like smaller depictions of those houses with some dummies out there, some smaller cactuses you can see on the horizon, some smaller buildings you can see on the horizon, which is pretty cool. Little cool details. But moving up to my favorite part, this explosion, and you can see the explosion going super far out with that really small explosion lines over there to the front of it, which is this giant mushroom cloud looking explosion. And there's a lot of really cool rendered styles in there, a lot of solid orange, yellow, and reds in there, some really dark black reds in there too, the more like filled explosion areas. And look at it just coming over the horizon. That looks so cool. Just flowing over that little horizon line and kind of entering over the horizon line a little bit, just to show that it's really creeping up. But overall, this mushroom cloud is something that is super sick. I actually used it in my gaming channel video. I'll throw that thumbnail up. I threw it in the background, and I just released that 2 weeks ago. So this is still something I'm super proud of, even though I made it years and years ago. But it is also one of those things that I always look back at and I'm like, man, I love how I illustrated this nuclear explosion. And if I ever did a nuclear explosion again, this would be the first thing I'd look back to and how I did it to obviously improve it. But another thing that I'd like to discuss in this nuclear explosion is these like white exaggerated marks here that kind of just overall make it look like it's exploding even further and even louder, kind of just giving the explosion a voice, I'd say, and really looking lethal. But overall, the explosion is probably my favorite part of this piece. Obviously, the main perspective of the piece, but since we're moving backwards farther and farther, we'll go back to another part that I actually think is super underrated in this piece. Hard to notice at first, but also something I really, really enjoy, which is these mountains in the back. Although this isn't very accurate to like a desert mountain, how they would be overlaid in real life, I think it's an exaggeration of how the mountains look, and I think they look really cool. I really dulled out, like I kind of wanted to make the sky look like it was post-apocalyptic too, like this explosion really affected this environment, and I think I did a really good job there. But overall, the colors and the shapes in the background, lineless shapes, kind of bring it all together, and I think without it, it wouldn't be as good, and it wouldn't really bring as much attention to that explosion as it did. But this is Boom Day, so let's move Boom Night. So here we got Boom Night. Created this obviously after Boom Day. I kind of like it a lot more than Boom Day, even though the Boom Day is the original. That's the one I'll always like the best. But the Boom Night just looks so badass and cool, and it's a little bit more my speed with the blood and the guts and stuff. So we started Boom Day with the vulture there. So let's start again with Boom Night. Instead of the dummy hand, we got this dead rabbit carcass in his mouth, and I think this thing just looks nasty and honestly super cool. Again, when I talked about logo, I was thinking about the scavenger head with the rabbit in the mouth as well as that overall logo, but I didn't obviously go through with that. But I think that looks really cool, and I think it was super successful illustrating that. One main thing that I added overall to this piece that's a complete difference before we get into specific differences is I added this red rim light on almost every object facing that explosion, because it is Boom Night. But I think the rim light on this looks really, really cool, and I think without it, I think I can turn it off. I think it was all on one layer. Obviously, without the rim light, it's not nearly as good. Yeah, I mean, it's almost necessary. It looks really, really good. I think I did again, this was a long time ago, so it's not perfect perspectively, but I think it adds so much to the piece. He doesn't care. He's getting food, so he doesn't give a shit. But again, the rim light's something that was apparent in this whole piece that kind of made it really, really cool looking and really fit the vibe of the mood. Moving to the left of the piece, to that mannequin, you saw him standing, and now he's melted in the flame, and so is his mannequin wife there. You can see her melting. Overall, really, really cool there. Some windows blew out. The roof is collapsing. We got flames coming out the chimney, using that same like render style I used on the explosion too, which is pretty cool. And then we have the explosion here. I know when I turn the filter off, you can see I overlaid a red that kind of set the tone a little bit with that really, really bright orange and red to that really, really dark purple background. You can see those mountains and the lineless mountains in the back with that purple and stuff. Looks super, super good. Overall, like the mood shift here from day to night is insanely successful. I think the colors colors in this, the super reds to the deep blue purples is just contrasting really well. And overall, this piece is again something I'm really proud of. Oh, here's another piece. I kind of put a chunk out of the keep out sign, added some flames to the small buildings down there. But I think the atmosphere here, the mood was really successfully done. I think the goal of this project was just to switch the mood entirely, so have something that was one way, so happy. I mean, not necessarily happy. I mean, I guess there's a nuke going off. No one's really dying, but you can obviously see a shift in mood from the one piece to the other. But that was Boom Day and Night. If you want to get some prints of these, I have my imprint store, link in my bio. You can check those out. You can also check out my other pieces, see if you want any of those. But Boom Day and Night's up on there. I really appreciate y'all watching episode 6. Go check out my first episode of my animation series on my last video, and like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.